Crashing through the lies and disinformation, it's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have Dr. Nick Begich on with us in this hour. We're going to open the phones up specifically on all this AI technology that's rolling into the home. In fact, Amazon has its little spy gadget. It's like your cell phone, but it listens to you, it tracks you, hackers get into it, it takes control of other devices in your house. And somebody gave my daughter one, and I heard her talking to something, and a computer talking to her. You know, she doesn't get a cell phone unless when she goes out, you know, stay at a friend's house overnight or a field trip. Then we give her like a flip phone. Oh, but sure enough, I heard her talking to a robot. I'm living in a science fiction movie. I go in there, there's the robot I've been talking about for 6 months that Amazon, Google, Facebook, they're all rolling out where, oh, you don't give your kid a cell phone because, you know, it's the internet. They can be tracked. Predators can come after them, hackers, the government. Oh, but now there's all these little cheap things that are 20, 30, 40 bucks, and they're in your house, and they're not telling you they're getting a giant gold mine of data on you. And then even Alex Jones's house. I'm getting my daughters ready for school this morning, or it's like camp school. They're off this week. Exercise camp, bouldering camp. And sure enough, I hear a robot talking to my daughter. We're not in Kansas anymore. We're going into 2017. So I want to review some of these technological developments, what's unfolding, what's happening. I'm not against technology. It's that the globalists admit they're piggybacking everything into it. And Dr. Begich has always said, Alex, you're worried about fluoride, and yes, they admit it's meant to lower IQ and lower fertility. You're worried about forced inoculation, and that's bad enough. It's the real threat is digital. It's electronic. It's everywhere. The patents, the carrier waves, what's admittedly going on. Data over power lines through light bulbs, which they admit can, quote, calm you or make you angry. This is going on. This is happening. Government buildings for a decade have been testing light bulbs to calm their staff. They don't even tell their staff that they're being put in a conditioning program. Coming up, I'm going to go over some of the news articles they've come out with admitting that the goal of the internet and the goal of these little AI computers that are watching you in your house is social control. I covered that in a special report that aired on the Nightly News on Wednesday night. So what's crazy is everything Dr. Nick Begich talked about 25 years ago, everything I talked about 20 years ago, is now just passé. They go, of course we're watching you. You go get a Samsung TV or another one. It tells you third parties will be watching and listening to you. It actually says. But even 2 years ago, people were like, that's incredible. Or Chicago's paid $20-something million to put up hundreds and hundreds of light poles with cameras and microphones listening to you. People couldn't believe that was real just 5 years ago. Just 6, 7 years ago, they couldn't believe when we broke the Stingray systems all over the country, grabbing your cell phone data illegally. Now they just admit it. So we've hit a point where world governments admit it. Total Big Brothers admit it. I mean, it's amazing. Our credibility's going up. They're calling for now censoring us. So I didn't do any pre-interview with Dr. Nick Begich. I know he can go all over the map. The election, the wars, what Obama's doing in his last 20 days, what he expects to happen, and so much more. And then at the bottom of the hour, your questions for Dr. Nick Begich on technology, on Big Brother, on anything. 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Briefly, because I didn't plug any last hour, and I even skipped 2 breaks, I shouldn't do that. We've got free shipping through New Year's Day, Christmas extended, and we also have 50 to 25% off hundreds of items, supplements, nutraceuticals, Brain Force, you name it, amazing nootropics. Super Male Vitality is selling out, and your purchase of these products makes what we do here possible. Sign up for auto ship, get an additional 10% off each purchase. Infowarsstore.com. InfowarsLife.com is the supplements, or call toll-free. We can answer all your questions. 888-253-3139. 888-253-3139. That's the number to call and to ask questions or ask about specials or order. The number to call in is 800-259-9231. First-time callers, 259-9231 on this Friday. Last official broadcast that we're doing in 2016. I am planning tomorrow night to do a Facebook mention / live YouTube feed on both our YouTube channels and on Facebook. I may even come in to the studio, but I don't want to make folks work. I mean, they deserve one day off a year, don't they? I'm worse than Ebenezer Scrooge, actually just trying to wake folks up. So, Dr. Nick Begich, best-selling author, researcher, joins us, earthpulse.com. Not a conspiracy theorist. He goes off the patents, off the facts, and let me tell you, we are not in Kansas anymore. One of his best-selling books is Controlling the Mind, Angels Don't Play This Harp, ESP Introduction, and so much more. Dr. Begich, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alex. It's been way too long, and it's always great to be with you.
How are you doing? Are you still up in Alaska?
I am, and right now it's about 9:15, and it's still dark outside. We don't get the sun for 15, 20 minutes start to rise here.
Where should we start? I mean, I threw a lot of stuff out there. You pioneered exposing this whole plan. I mean, here we are. What are they not telling us about?
Well, you know, I think the idea of convenience is really the sales pitch that we've been sold on virtually all of these technologies over the years. And the fact of the matter is, the convenience, you give up an awful lot. You know, we used to think about privacy as the doorway to our homes. Today, it's our digital doorway, which means we really have to look at what is being collected. All of these devices, all of this convenience is about cataloging information on people. We wrote about this 16 years ago in the book Earth Rising the Revolution, talking about what was coming in terms of surveillance and technologies. And at that time, many don't remember, but in Great Britain and London, you had no presumption of privacy no matter where you went. They had cameras on every corner, microphones on every corner. New York was headed that way back then, and now we have an entire country believing that is the way to go. And the excuses are violence, terrorism, international drug trafficking. These were things that the military actually built into the programming, if you will, back in the 80s in a publication by the U.S. Army War College that dealt with modern technology and sort of what it was going to do in shaping the future. And at that time in the 80s, they said these new technologies would violate American values, would violate the Constitution. But the military training colleges didn't stop there. Instead, they said, we need strategies to bring this about, and they used the strategy of fear. Fear of terrorism, fear of drug trafficking, in order to screw down liberty and freedom in America. And they have effectively done it. If you look at the amount of column inches in newspapers covering those stories over the last 20 years, you can see the continual build.
And notice they're the ones actually bringing in the unvetted refugees, 80% of military-age men, to create the even bigger crisis.
Right. And when you think about this, the idea, you know, I mean, even look at our southern border. Our southern border, 10% of the adult population has been running away to the United States for years. What are we doing? You know, I mean, we're supporting the closest thing to a dictatorship in Mexico. Yeah, they have elections, if you want to call them elections. But the fact of the matter is, it's one of the most corrupt countries right on our border. We support them. Every time their people try and have a revolution, we suppress it. We get involved in it. You know, we had a revolution a little over 200 years ago. Served us real well. And personally, I believe that every country has a right to self-determination without interference. And if their population is running away from a corrupt government, what are we doing supporting them? And this happens all around the world. We do this continually, support corruption.
Well, from your studies, and of course your father, famous congressman, airplane went down, probably killed, as you've said, your brother, a former U.S. senator, looking at this, who runs it, and what's the end game of the technocracy?
It is about corporations. It has always been about corporations. It is about control and influence. It's about the banking industry. The idea of controlling the economic means for individual people is really the route to a real dictatorship, in the sense that we have the sense of an open government, but when you really look at what fuels the government, it's special interest politics. It has always been that way. This election was the explosion I think America needed to go off. A political change that was so profound and so unexpected by the mainstream, because even with all the surveillance, they still can't register the depth of the American character, which is when we get burned a certain amount, the revolution begins.
I agree. Let me ask you that question then, because you've been talking about this forever, and I don't want to kiss your butt, but you've been an incredible visionary. Back when I would listen to you in the late 90s on Coast to Coast AM and call up and have you on my own show and, reading your books, now I feel passé. I guess, do you feel passé? Because literally almost everything you talked about has now come true or worse because you were just going off the documentation. But at the same time, so many people in the system now admit that what's been built isn't good. And what's crazy is it seems like so much of the opposition now is actually within the military and within this whole complex.
I think that's going to be the saving grace, the fifth column of American freedom. People who understand what their commitments are, what the Constitution actually means, and are willing to stand by it, and to blow the whistle on corruption. That's what we need more of, not less of. People are complaining about a Russian hack. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. But what did they hack? They hacked the corruption in the Democratic Party, for God's sake.
They changed the subject.
Right. I mean, the point of the matter is, we've done this as the United States. In every country, in every election in the world, we have so-called national interests, or what are really, in my view, corporate interests. And when we've interfered with elections around the world, people have complained. And we just kind of look the other way and go on with our routine. When you think about American politics, my family's been in it for 3 generations. And when you look at American politics, American government, it's do something over here, but the real game is on the other side.
Let's talk about the real game with Dr. Nick Begich, the trailblazer, exposing the technocracy for what, 25, 26 years? How long is it?
That's right. It's been about 25 years.
We'll be right back, sir. Stay there. Hard to believe. I just looked down at the start of this hour and realized this is the last live broadcast I'm doing of 2016, unless I come in tomorrow and do a special transmission. And I'm going to do it, whether it's at a friend's house or in my house or around a campfire. We're going to do where I'm on YouTube with one live feed, and sometimes millions tune in, and then also on Facebook mentions. Just an incredible time to be alive, and what an amazing year. Coming up in the next segment that's longer, I'm going to ask Dr. Begich what he thinks it was most important this year and what he's most concerned about coming up next year. But getting back to this big issue that he was starting to hit, while they're diverting us with the beautiful assistant, the magician is doing something with his left hand, the sinister hand. And when we look at this worldwide awakening to nationalism, populism, which is genuine, sure, there's going to be attempts to hijack it, but the globalists are genuinely panicked and scared. And I think Begich was getting to that when he said the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray, despite all their AI, all their propaganda, all of it. Their own people now are decompartmentalized because of the internet, and their own panopticon spy grid is biting them in the butt with their own NSA system. They're trying to change the subject now, saying, oh, it's the Russians. I mean, is that what you're getting at, Dr. Begich?
Yeah, and when I look at this, our government has been responsible for kidnapping, torture, extortion, bribery. I mean, all the felonies that are the Class A felonies, right? And this is our government representing us in the world? I don't think so. I think this is the problem. This is why countries are angry at us. It's not the individual citizens. I mean, most people that meet Americans when I travel, and I travel a lot.
Is it fair to say we're trying to exorcise the demon? We're trying to exorcise the rogue element?
I think so. I think that's exactly it. I think there's an element within government that is really solid and good, and there is an element within government that are just the drones for a class of people, the elites. And I've met them. I mean, I know a lot of people in the world, and these folks all have deep philosophical leanings. Once you discover them, you find out where they really are. And unfortunately, the white knights in political life are rare and few between. Occasionally,
do you think Trump's the return of that, or at least archetypally?
I think he is as an archetype. Now, let's see what happens, is my view, because there are huge forces arraying against him. When I look back on what happened 8 years ago in the Obama administration, when he went in, irrespective of what everybody thought he was going to do, he surrounded himself with the same institutional hacks, the bureaucratic hacks that actually run the government. Trump isn't doing that. It's the first time I think I can remember, certainly in my lifetime, where presidents come in and have not leaned into the standard political establishment. I think that's a good sign. There's also some risk, of course. But you know what? This is a country of risks. This is the nature of freedom and capitalism as we take risks. How big are those risks? Brief branches of government make sure they're not ever too big.
Dr. Begich, you just said something that is so amazing, and you come from a famous Democratic Party family.
That's right.
But your dad was an activist. He really did care about people. He did a lot of great stuff. I'm not going to demonize your brother, but I think he was kind of on both sides. But the point is that, but I think he was a genuine good person when he was in the Senate. He certainly wasn't one of the bad actors.
No.
But if you pull back from all this, you've certainly been, purely a good actor, just understanding we're all interconnected. But exactly, I've studied his appointments. They're all renegades, even when they're from Goldman Sachs or even when they're at ExxonMobil. They buck the system, and that's what he's surrounding himself with. People are spinning it like National Review saying he's already betrayed his base. He's bringing insiders in. No, he's bringing in technicians that have actually been rebels from my research.
Right, I agree with that in terms of what their profiles are. And these are the mavericks. These are people that have an entrepreneurial bent within government that see ways to fix things. This is what's important in government, is creative, innovative, new approaches to changing things. It's not just the corruption in government. We give it nice names. We call them foundations and contributions and all this stuff. But it's no different than a brown paper bag with a bunch of money in it. It influences way too much of government against the average person's interest. And it used to be Democrats talking about the average person's interest, and now it's Donald Trump Republicanism, which is different, way different than what the Republican Party
Sure, just to finish my point, because it's so important, the reason I brought up your pedigree is you're an honest, real, true progressive, not the cancerous type that they've hijacked what you are, the good liberal. And, you are a guy with a lot of credibility, and you're saying, as a political expert, a real insider, just from research, you're saying it looks pretty good what Trump's doing. That's what I'm seeing, too. Other people I don't think are nuanced enough, I'm not being arrogant, to understand that. I want to come back and get your take on that, and then other subjects that you think are front and center, and then some phone calls with Dr. Nick Begich. We'll also talk about what's hidden right now, what are they diverting us from, and what is Dr. Nick Begich's biggest concern politically on how they might try to bring Trump and this nationalist populist movement down. We'll be right back. His website's earthpulse.com.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network. Alex Jones Show, because there is a war on for your mind.
All right, we could have Dr. Begich up for like 2 hours. We probably should do that and actually roll through his books and mind control and the admitted patents and all the rest of it. I know we got loaded phones. People want to talk about AI. There was an article out of The Intercept just a few days ago, and it's got basically whistleblowers from inside Zuckerberg's operation. And it talks about his famously sequestered Palo Alto home where nobody surveils him. He doesn't have these AI devices in his house. And they talk about how we're all going to be these avatars that'll be scored on the internet and by government. China already has this. And if you're not a good little globalist, they start lowering your score until you're not even allowed to have a job. So it's a digital ghetto beyond Jews having to wear yellow stars. And they talk about the fact in here that it's meant to control our emotions and our physical behavior, and that the goal with the VR products is to social engineer. Once they're in place, researchers say the psychological aspects of digital embodiment combined with the troves of data that the consumer VR products can freely mine from our bodies, like the head movements and facial expressions, we give corporations and governments unprecedented insight and power over our emotions and physical behavior. And then they can not just have mass programming to predict the future, they can control the future. And, of course, they released this last year that when Google was founded 18 years ago, NASA and the CIA and using NSA search technology, keyword technology, that The government was in the meetings. In fact, it came out, Google published this, Wired published this, and said, the generals were sitting around the table, and they said, we already have search engines. Well, what's the point? They said, this isn't a search engine. This is artificial intelligence hooked into billions of users where the AI controls people. This is mind control, General. And then they publish this like we're idiots and don't get it. So we see this arrogance because no matter how powerful these machines are, Dr. Begich, isn't the ghost of the machine the fact that a bunch of control freaks came up with this, co-opted technology, and believe it's going to be our downfall when in reality it's blowing back on them? Have they really created something that the humans that you talk about are more advanced than the elite want to admit, well, they're actually scared of it, are about to actually take over, and that AI will just be our tool to go to the next level? Dr. Begich.
That is certainly possible. You know, the one factor they can't predict in is human emotion, and for the universal human factor, that which links us to the creation itself. And you can't calculate that. You can't put that into a formulation. The idea of screwing down the population, not just the American population, the global population. Think about finance controls of money, digital money, which is now starting to take off everywhere. I mean, you got some countries where currency isn't even utilized very much anymore, and you got other countries that have been totally disrupted, like India, where currency's, of course, been taken out of circulation in order to corrupt or not corrupt the system. So what they're doing essentially is taking the things that facilitate free trade and getting those under the umbrella where all of your transactions, all of your trade, all of your activities become tracked. And from that amount of data, people say, well, that's a huge amount of data. We can't really do much with it. This is the fallacy, because storing the data is the first element. The second element is sorting it. And the ability to sort data increases exponentially every few years. And we're about to hit the quantum computing side where all this data will be utilized, and they will be able to profile people so specifically and send advertising and promotion so specifically, it will manipulate and control not just emotional behavior, but take that and use it as the momentum for carrying off social change. We already see it. I mean, we don't even need a digital world to do this in. The media has been has had that tool forever. You know, I avoid the mainstream media because it is the fake news, folks. It is so contrary to what they're promoting. But the last few weeks, I've listened to a couple of things. I listened to CNN for a little bit, and I listened to public radio. And public radio is the panic party for the liberal agenda, because these people are scattered all over the map right now. And what they're attacking are all illusion, from my perspective, and unimportant issues. And when you look at the other side, the CNN side, it's a bunch of talking heads arguing with each other, doing the same thing they were doing during the Trump campaign, still missing the mainstream media, still missing what the average people are looking for. And in the course of this, the alternative media is becoming more of the truth in this country.
So now they're announcing they want to censor us, proving our point that they're total tyrants. Every time in history they try to suppress thought, unless you kill everybody that's educated or wearing glasses like the Khmer Rouge, it never works. In an internet age, they're going to try to censor Infowars and Drudge. That is only going to make us superstars. The problem is we now see massive denial of service attacks. His server folks telling him looks like U.S. government attack on Drudge last night. This is their cyber response to who they claim are Russian agents. The bizarre, beyond McCarthy on PCP, LSD, mescaline, claiming I'm a Russian agent. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just, it's crazy.
This is the kind of thing they're going to do, because in politics, if you can't attack the issues, you can't attack the logic and the rationale, you start attacking people, and you start attacking their systems. And this is what our government is doing. And they used to call us, one time they tried to villainize people like me, and they gave us the name accumulators, because we could go into the mix of the matrix and pull out all the data and prove exactly what they're doing without ever touching classified materials. And they wanted to restrict that. Well, that's called investigative reporting.
That's right. They don't like us reverse engineering, because no matter how classified something, even with disinfo out there, we see the manifestation of what they're really doing.
Oh, you can't miss it. And the fact of the matter is, you look at how people behave, and how people act, and they say, oh, none of this really matters. It all matters. The programming that is happening right now through the mainstream media, and has been happening, has conditioned a population to increase violence in young people,
sure,
to a lack of morals.
Well, that's really what you have to know about this elite, right? Is they're pushing, dumbing us down to make us more manageable. That's not a real elite. And, it's funny you mentioned accumulators or people that are accumulating data. I remember like 18 years ago when I had NSA folks leaking me stuff, and then I got threatened, and then I had military people come around, and then CIA folks come around trying to recruit me. They said, listen, you could be a great accumulator with us, and we're really good guys, and all this crap. And sure, there may be some good guys in there, but the overall directive is very, very bad. And what I'm trying to teach folks to do, and what you do, is to be able to accumulate data and be a private, independent analyst for humanity, real human intelligence against the globalists. They can't stop that.
No, they can't. And, the thing about it is we've always done it the same way you have. It's people who listen to us and support us over the years that have kept us doing what we do. And it's amazing how much information is actually out there if you take the time to do it. And so, you and I both, and a lot of us out there, we're distillers. We take a lot of information in, we package it, we deliver it, but we also keep those sources intact so people can validate, what we're saying. And we have been right. I mean, 99%.
You have been so dead on. It's unbelievable. I mean, do you ever shake your head and wish you were wrong?
Here's my view of it is I think it's important to educate people on the issues. But more importantly is we need to recognize our inner strength as human souls to change the game. Every single one of us, everybody listening to this broadcast today is a force of one that is as potent as you need to be. You're connected to everyone else, everything else. There doesn't need to be a group. It's called
That's right. It's our actions of how we vote, how we buy, where we go, what we say. All of it has power. They want us to just be programmed to repeat what they say, their centralized message, their control of language. If we just become independent, create art, create literature, create poetry, go outside, love our families, be good people, we will be shining lights in their system, and they can't compete with it.
That is exactly right. And we are created in the image of a creator. We have incredible potential. We need to recognize our birthright and carry it forward and be the force of liberty in the 21st century to recapture the spirit of what happened 225, 30 years ago and grab that spirit and hold it again, not in the course of violence, but in the course of clear, logical thinking, and don't let the elites take us down. The opportunity to create change and to find alliances between people. Look for the common ground that changes the world, because the elites, their common ground is to crush us, to take away the human spirit, and to make us the drones of the 21st century. That is not what we are. We are those lights that Alex was just talking about. We are the light for the change that happens in the world by stepping into what we know to be right and true and acting in a good way, a responsible way, a caring way, and the way that we were created to act as human beings.
Wow. I mean, don't pause or I'll jump in, Doctor. And the reason I jump in so much, and you do too, this is exciting. And we're not like pre-programmed. We didn't do a pre-interview. We probably haven't talked in about a year. And we're on the same page because we're looking at the same reality. And it doesn't mean we're perfect, but what we're seeing is a lot closer to common sense and reality than what the false purveyors of disinformation are putting out. And I got to tell you, I'm very optimistic. There's a lot of negative stuff happening, a lot of bad things happening, but that which doesn't kill us only makes us stronger if we're aware of what's happening. What are some of the biggest things on your radar?
I would be watching the elections in France and the Netherlands in the spring. The French population is pretty anti-European Union right now. The same is true with the Dutch. The immigration issues are crushing them right now. I think those elections coming up in the spring could turn the tables on the EU and make the Brexit the beginning of the end in a real formal way. I think those are European elections we should watch. They are also, I travel, and people are saying the same things. It's the same globalists screwing up the same countries, whether it's Germany, the Netherlands, France.
There's only a couple hundred of them. I mean, there's only 5 or 6 big organizations. It's a couple hundred guys. People always blame white people. There's a bunch of old white guys running around screwing with everybody, creating race war, creating division, and consolidating control, and then exempting themselves at the international level from the taxes, the regulations, and what we live under.
Right. And, these European, the European Union, as an example, who elected any of these people? The United Nations. Who elected any of these people? They don't represent me. They don't represent the European working man and woman. They represent the elites that put them in power, that gave them power over us. Nobody should have power over us unless we select them. These are self-determining countries. Everyone's entitled to their own form of government, whether they want a theocracy, a democracy, a republic. People have a right to self-determination within their boundaries, and we should respect that as a country. We should be an example, not an intruder in everybody's back door, but an example for what works. And for us, it does work. For others, it may not work for another 50 or 100 years. The idea of a globalist world today, we're just too diverse.
Well, I mean, we can have global nations working together and treaties and agreements, but not centralized secret groups that create global secret treaties that are all one-sided, that are totalitarian. We can't have a global government that's totalitarian. Certainly down the road, if people, want to have shared values and shared communal agreements, that's natural, but not forced.
Right, and that's not going to happen for a few more 100 years, the way I gauge it. Now, when I say about what's coming, the big things, I think the Middle East, we've got to pay real close attention. The Obama administration and Hillary have been in. They're doing everything they can to get us in a major conflict and to keep us there. They're interested in reinvigorating the Cold War, which we do not need. We need to reassess our global relationship, certainly in the 21st century. But I don't believe most countries, maybe the exception China, have an interest in crushing what's working. But the political philosophy of China is such that, I won't do business there, not at this point in time. But the Russians are changing. I do a lot of work in Russia. I spent a couple weeks there in Moscow and St. Petersburg this summer. And what I see, we have all these sanctions. They are a joke from my perspective. There's nothing in Moscow that you can't find from Western countries. Nothing. I don't care what it is. They're not working. It's counterproductive.
Well, you've been over there. All I know is I go on some of the top Russian shows, people that advise Putin, and they're just Americana, Renaissance, anti-New World Order. They seem to get that there's a real revolution against the New World Order. They first pioneered it, kicking the oligarchs out. They understand the chain reaction, and I think Russia's really excited. That's why the globalists are panicking.
That is exactly it. And I say the strongest economies, one of the biggest surprises in the world is going to be the Russian economy. Their ruble took a beating a few years ago, but you watch.
Putin wants to be the global leader in organic food. We're going with Monsanto and all this evil. Yep. They're going the opposite.
Yep.
Amazing. Let's take a few phone calls for Dr. Nick Begich. EarthPulse.com. All his books are evergreen. You can read books he wrote 20 years ago, more important than ever. I want to get him back up in the new year. I've got to put in the computer on the, in the calendar, just remember, it's like a year goes by. We got to get Dr. Begich on. Every few months they'll do it. I want you to come on about ESP. I know a lot of studies have proven it's going on. Government studied it. We all know about 6 Sense. Tell somebody's looking at us. I want to get into that. I want to break that down with you in a full interview as well. Let's take some phone calls. We got Zach, Daniel, Ruth, Ben, Stefan, and others. Let's go ahead and talk to Ben in Nevada. You're on the air with Dr. Nick Begich.
Hello, Alex.
Hello. Yes, go ahead, sir.
The man, the myth, the legend, Alex Jones. I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Quick, combat veteran in Iraq and Afghanistan. Do you think the AI that is in the house nowadays is actually mapping the inside of the house? We had this technology in Iraq before we'd actually breach a door. We could see the inside and where the people were located. Do you think they're using this technology to create a false representation of our homes? So when they introduce us into this virtual reality, that we are more accustomed to it because it's something that we're familiar with already?
What a smart point. They admit that these little AI systems we get that put in our houses or mapping our houses, they admit the police helicopters have this now. They're just not telling the cops about the systems being rolled out. They're 20, 30 years old. But Dr. Begich, he has all the patents, you name it.
We're standing naked before our government. I mean, literally, there is nothing about you. There is nothing about any individual that they cannot monitor.
Microsoft Connect can see through 3 walls on average in your house alone. And Microsoft admits they're data mining all of it. You having sex with your wife, what you're saying in your dreams, it's beyond 1984.
Yeah, and again, when this was always sort of the plan. I mean, it's the ultimate marketing plan, when they can tailor everything to not just push you in a direction, whether it's politics or shopping. I mean, from their perspective, it's about delivering a message, convincing people that they're correct, and then making sure they get delivery. And they don't need to affect everybody. They just need to push the envelope just far enough.
They call it nudging.
Yeah, exactly right. And this is such easily accomplished.
And let's be clear. A lot of folks say, so what if they know what I want, and put a dog food ad up because they hear the dog barking. Folks, that's only a small part. They admit it's controlling you, and then by stimuli, manipulating who you are.
Right. And you can do
You wouldn't want your wife to know all the stuff they know about you or your husband. This is crazy.
You know, and the thing about it is it's subtle. And some of it is really convenient. And so you sign on. But when you really analyze, what are they really gathering? And see, I think we have the opposite end of this privacy. I don't think data should be retained on anyone for more than the time it takes to dispute.
Absolutely, it should be destroyed each time. But they got laws saying you got to keep the data. We'll be back with Dr. Nick Begich and your phone call straight ahead. Great points, Ben. Amazing points. We've got 2 more segments with Dr. Nick Begich, and then Leanne McAdoo is taking over. She's going to have former head of the Treasury, head of policy, former Wall Street Journal editor, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, to break down the unprecedented kicking out of Russian diplomats, closing of 2 Russian buildings, and Putin's response of saying, I'm not kicking any Americans out. Obama is a mean, basically brain dead, horrible person who just wants war. We're trying to create peace. So it's just incredible to see the arrogance of our elite. Also, we are self-funded by you buying products. That's roughly 70% of our revenue, maybe more, is InfoWarsStore.com. Whether it's, again, non-GMO heirloom seeds or nutraceuticals, free shipping store-wide until the 1st. And on top of it, 50 to 25% off the already discounted nutraceuticals. Super Male Vitality is about to sell out. BioTrue Selenium just sold out. Our colloidal silver sold out, as you know, on Monday. So we try to sell everything out with some of the biggest savings of the year at the end of the year, so we don't have to pay the inventory. It's a business property tax is what it is at the end of the year. Just like car dealerships, try to sell out of their cars. So some of the best deals, if not the best deals of the year, InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com takes you right to the nutraceuticals, or you can call toll-free, 888-253-3139. I want to thank you all for your support. And these specials go right through the weekend until Monday when they end. Again, Dr. Nick Begich is our guest, taking your phone calls. Let's talk to Zach in Wisconsin. You're on the air with Dr. Nick Begich.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome. Go ahead. Thank you. Yes.
I would just like to say that why do you specifically think that Russian hacking is not a real thing? Because I think it is. All the major government agencies say it is. I believe that they hacked it so Trump could win. I believe that Trump and Putin have something going on that shouldn't be going on.
Okay. I can barely understand you because of your phone, but what I'm getting from you is the communist Chinese openly said they were financing Hillary's campaign. The Saudi princess said they funded 20% of it. She's got a foundation with billions, most of it illegal money. That's all admitted. She's got an illegal server discussing all these criminal actions, and all these foreign states reportedly were getting on her illegal server. That's what they're supposed to do. But to say the Russians, who have the GDP of Italy, controlled us. No, we didn't want Hillary anymore. Now, first they said these agencies said this, then Clapper came out, the head of all the agencies, and said, it's not true. We mean they influenced, not hacked. So what I'm saying is, any way you slice it, it's changing the subject from the crimes they're committing. Dr. Begich?
I absolutely agree. The fact of the matter is, whether the Russians hacked the Democratic Party's database or not, the reality is the Democratic Party was engaged in exactly what Bernie Sanders and Trump were saying. It's a rigged game, and it has been rigged, and all they did is prove it. Now, was it the Russians or some guy in a room sitting on a couch? I don't know, but I know this about our government. They've hacked every system they can get into in every country in the world, and have influenced every political leader on the planet, if they could, because that's our foreign policy.
Apple and Google admit they routinely hack millions of their own users. That's what all this stuff is. That's what this Amazon system you buy, Amazon Tap and Amazon Alexa, do.
Well, think about the Germans. How did they feel when they found out that we were hacking Merkel's phones? Think about this. The NSA was tapping all of our allies' phones. What is that about? And they're complaining about the Russians? We were tapping the phones of the heads of state, not some Democratic party or some political party in some country. This is, I mean, it's calling the kettle black. Right?
It is preposterous to even claim this, knowing the whole system's designed as a giant grid. People just want to say the election is illegitimate. Let me ask you a question, Zach. Do you really think folks wanted Hillary? Do you really think that was a good candidate to run? Do you really think the Russians mind-controlled America? Zach?
I wanted her. I mean, I voted for her. I wanted her. I originally wanted Bernie, but she lost, I think, fair and square. But I voted for Hillary Clinton proudly, and I get it. There's a lot of things wrong with her. I could go on all day. There's a lot of things wrong.
Sure, but I'm saying it's everybody's hacking everybody, bro.
For listening to G
We'll be back. Stay with us.
Visit GCNlive.com today.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones.
From the front lines.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Mother, tell your children not to walk my...
It's so frustrating talking to that nice caller. He's like, well, the mainstream media and all the agencies say it. No, they don't. The FBI and the head of all intelligence came out and said it wasn't true, and then Obama ordered them as the president to lie. That basically has come out. But it's ridiculous. Hillary had an illegal server. You're not supposed to have those because they will get hacked. And then it changes the subject from everything else that's happening, and now they're trying to delegitimize an election and trying to start wars, as Dr. Begich said. That, to me, is the big issue. But notice, as you said, they keep changing the subject, Doctor.
That's right. They want to talk about a server that shouldn't have been there in the first place. And anybody who's had any exposure to classified materials, any number of these things would have gotten someone fired and in jail for some of these breaches of security. And she was Secretary of State. Oh, come on. And when you think about all of this, I mean, I listening to the last caller, I feel sorry for him because he actually bought the propaganda. He accepted this story. And anyone who knows anything about the Clintons, they're the most corrupt people you've ever seen. They came into office with nothing but a pile of lawsuits coming out of Arkansas and a chain of events that was as corrupt as it could get, and a chain of dead bodies. In the time they've been in elective office, they have collected in campaigns and contributions to their foundations and campaigns somewhere on the order of $4 billion.
That's right.
And, you know, and I've talked about these foundations for over 20 years because this is how you hide the corruption.
They're money laundering operations, and they call them philanthropists.
Right. And the thing is, they can take money from anybody, and they do. They build huge wealth, and the deal is it's the bribe after you're in office. So this way, everybody makes sure you deliver before they pay you, and then they pay you. And it's play for pay, and I don't care what they call it or how they develop the regulations to mask bribery and corruption, but it's the same thing no matter what words you give it. It's the same effect.
Absolutely. Let's take another call. Dr. Begich, we got to get him back on a regular basis. Let's talk to Ruth in Montana. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Oh, okay. Am I live on the air?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Alex, doctor, thank you for taking my call. I had a really good question at the beginning of my call, but now I've had to switch it. So now that you guys have, pulled the veil back on the AI technocracy and biotechnology stuff, I'm wondering what you guys think they're going to do now that it's been revealed how they've been getting people to buy in as, accepting these technologies and stuff, how they're going to promote them in the future.
Well, what they do is, I'm sitting there and I hear my daughter talking to a robot, and I go in, and sure enough, somebody's given it to her, and I didn't even know. And it's, again, the Microsoft Alexa, to make it sound non-threatening, or the Alexa system put out by Bezos there at Amazon. And again, it looks non-threatening. It's a microphone. It admits it's spying on you. They admit it's their plan to take over your child's life and then direct them in certain directions. This is incredible. If you found a neighbor putting a microphone in your house, you'd probably sue them or kick their butt. Dr. Begich?
Yeah, this is exactly it. We've invited all of this technology in without recognizing sort of the darker side of it, which from a commercial perspective, I mean, it ought to be pretty transparent. I mean, there should be no surprises here. The thing about it is we've lost our compass in all of it. And I think the idea of being programmed at a higher level, I mean, look at the curriculums in schools, look at how it's played out in the media, look at how it's played out all the way through your life.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Dr. Begich, we're out of time. Folks can find his books at earthpulse.com. I've got a special report on the new Alien Covenant film, the new Prometheus, where the elite basically throw it in your face what they're planning to do. It's very powerful. Then Leanne McAdoo's taking over. Dr. Begich, thank you for all the time. earthpulse.com. Please come back in the next month.
We're looking forward to it anytime you want to have us.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. All right. This is a powerful report. It gets into the globalist religion, what they believe, not what I believe. This is the real Inside Mojo coming up, and then Leanne, and so much more today. Thank you all for your support, and I'll be broadcasting with a special transmission sometime about 9 o'clock tomorrow night as well. Follow Infowars.com.